Welcome to Beatsource Tech. My name's Mojaxx and today we're looking at some studio monitors. This has been quite an interesting one for me. In the past on this channel, I've generally only reviewed entry-level, affordable studio monitors. Today though, we're going a little bit more premium with the latest from German manufacturer Adam Audio. We're looking at the A7Vs. I've been on something of a journey when it comes to studio monitors. When I first started reviewing them, I was looking at things entirely from a DJ perspective. But as time has gone on and my knowledge has broadened, I feel like I have a much better handle on what makes one set of monitors better than another, whatever they're being used for. A good example of that was when I reviewed the T10S subwoofer from Adam Audio, as during that process I had to learn a lot about how and why a subwoofer is useful, or potentially not, in a monitoring setup. I've also had to educate myself about acoustics as part of my ongoing mission to improve the sound quality of these videos, which hasn't always been as good as I would like. The lab is now fully decked out in high quality GIK acoustics panels, and I've learnt a lot more about the behaviour of sound within rooms. All of which is to say, whilst I'm still no expert on sound and production, I did feel like I was just about ready when Adam Audio said they were sending the A7V monitors out for review. Because up to now, all of the monitors I've reviewed have been strictly in the budget end of things, up to around $300 per speaker. And I've looked at some great monitors in that price range, the Kali Audios, the KRK Rocket G4s and the Pioneer DJ VM line. But the ones I keep coming back to, and the main monitors in the lab to this day, are the Adam Audio T7Vs. For me, they struck a perfect balance of a reasonably flat sound, enough bass, thanks to their 7-inch woofers, and buckets of clarity from the ribbon tweeters. At around $250 each, I still think they're a steal. But today we're looking at the A7V, the next rung up on the Adam Audio ladder, with a street price of around $800 each in the US. That's a pretty big jump, and so the question I asked myself throughout the review process was simple: are these worth the extra money? The A7V is part of the new A series, which includes a total of 5 models. There's the compact A4V, the horizontal dual woofer A44H, the A77H with a similar form factor but bigger woofers, and the big boy in the line, the A8H. You will notice the different V and H suffixes, which refer to vertical and horizontal respectively, but there's a twist to that which we'll get to later. Unsurprisingly, the A7V is the successor to the hugely popular A7X, which was always Adam Audio's best-selling monitor. Like the new one, the A7X was a front-ported box featuring a 7-inch main driver and an X-Art ribbon tweeter, but aside from those basics, the A7V is upgraded in pretty much every way. It features a sturdy, vinyl-wrapped MDF cabinet which feels very solid indeed. This features deeper beveling to reduce diffraction and thicker baffle walls to reduce vibration. A really nice touch is the 4 M8 screw holes on the base, which will allow the monitors to work with a forthcoming range of wall, ceiling and pole mounting options from Adam Audio. The flared front ports should mean the A7Vs aren't too fussy about being placed close to walls and are designed to optimise airflow and reduce port noise. The whole build is about efficiency, and that's reflected in their size. They're actually a little smaller than the T7Vs despite having the same size woofer. Those 7-inch woofers are all new, constructed from layers of mineral stone fibres that have been baked together. This promises to ensure maximum rigidity and a clean response, as does the matching new magnet system with a voice coil size of 1.3 inches. Pushing power to the drivers are 2 amplifiers, a highly efficient PWM aka Class D amp for the woofer, which pushes out 90 watts RMS whilst keeping temperatures low, and a 15 watts RMS Class AB amp for the tweeter. Speaking of that tweeter, that's always been my favourite thing about Adam Audio monitors. Their X-Art design, extended accelerated ribbon technology, is incredibly responsive, and because of its folded nature, offers a much bigger diaphragm area compared to its effective diameter. The waveguide, the recess that the tweeter is built into, is very directional, designed to match the dispersion of the woofer in the horizontal domain but reduce vertical deflection onto desks and the ceiling. With the more budget T-series, these are fixed in place, so rotating the monitors into a horizontal position is a very bad idea. But on the A-series, the whole waveguide can be removed and rotated 90 degrees, so if you want or need to run the monitors on their side, you can. You could even flip them 180 degrees and have the monitors upside down if that's what your space requires. Adam do recommend running the A7Vs in their stock configuration for the very best sound, but I think it's fantastic that they offer this option for users. Built into the waveguide is a small LED which shows that the monitor is powered on and is also used as a tool with the A-Control software, which we'll get to. Some users might prefer to have that switched off, and I couldn't find a way to make that happen, but it's not distractingly bright. Heading around the back of the A7Vs, the options keep coming. There's a worldwide power supply with an IEC connector, and above that are the 2 inputs, balanced XLR and unbalanced RCA, with a switch to go between the two. Then we get to the really interesting stuff found across the whole A series. At the top are the room adaptation buttons, each with multiple settings. Bass, for example, can go from -4 to +2 dB to compensate for how close the speakers are to walls. Desk goes from -4 to 0 dB to adjust for how close they are to your desk, and the presence and treble take care of the mid and high end. You will probably need to experiment with these controls to get the best sound out of your room, unless you use the other options we're about to discuss. There's a voicing button too, which allows you to choose between different predefined profiles for the monitors. These are applied before the room adaptation controls. The first setting is UNR, or Uniform Natural Response. This is a dynamic, natural sounding curve which will be familiar to users of older Adam audio products like the A7X. Adam suggests this is ideal for production, composition and songwriting. Then there is the Pure option, which, as the name implies, is designed to be as flat as possible for mixing, mastering and the like. Not quite as nice to listen to, but it's all about accuracy. The final voicing selection is External, and this is where the A series really levels up. Next to the voicing button is an Ethernet port, which allows you to connect the monitors to your local network. Why would you want to do this? Well, it allows you to make use of Adam's own free A-Control software for Windows and Mac. The software lets you do quite a few things by controlling the DSP of the monitors. Firstly, it acts as a remote control, muting and selecting input sources remotely. You can also tweak the room adaptation controls without needing to physically reach around to the back of the speakers. And you can create your own advanced sound profile with a 6-band parametric EQ and even delay time. This can then be transferred to the monitors so you don't have to run the software all the time. And that brings us to SonarWorks. Being honest, I was aware of SonarWorks and their Sound ID reference software before, but I'd never really looked into it. But as the A series is compatible with it, I had them send me out one of their measurement microphones and I tried it for myself. Sound ID Reference is calibration software basically with two functions. With headphones, it applies a predefined EQ curve to the audio specific to the headphone model to compensate for the natural curve of the headphones and produce a flat sound output. But with speakers, things are more in depth. You set up your monitors where they're going to be used and then use the software and the mic to measure the sound from 37 different positions in the room relative to your listening position. This takes a while, around 20 minutes, but then what it spits out is a custom profile based on not only the sound of the monitors themselves, but also how they relate to the room. The software then takes that data and builds a custom EQ curve, making the output of your monitors as flat as possible, or allows them to be adjusted accurately to a curve of your choice. This can be applied to your audio in 3 different ways: as a global system-wide setting via the app, as a plugin in DAWs, and this is where the A series comes in, by exporting to supported hardware. I've now used the Sound ID reference software in a few different situations and I found it generated some incredibly useful results, most notably in my home studio where I edit these videos. That has a sloping ceiling and my desk is right next to the wall, and I found that even with small monitors, I'd previously been hearing way more bass than I should have been. Basically, very quickly I was entirely sold on Sound ID reference and I will be using it forever now. There's one big downside to using the app globally, and that's the fact that it does add a little latency. For most applications this is acceptable, and it has been for me, but it won't work for everyone. But this is where the integration with the A series comes into play, and it is frankly awesome. So what you can do is take the calibration done by Sound ID reference, export it and write it to the monitors. Then you're getting all of the benefits of that EQ curve precisely calculated for your room and listening position, but without the latency caused by using the app. You can even switch between the Pure, UNR, Advanced and SonarWorks profiles as and when you wish, using the hardware controls or the A-Control app. Sound ID reference is not cheap. You'll need the version which does both speakers and headphones, and that's €250 or €300 with the measurement mic. But as I say, I am fully into it in general, and even more so with the A series. It's a superb collaboration. And so that brings me to the all-important sound of the A7Vs. I'll note first of all that when I had them on stands in the middle of the room with minimal surfaces nearby to reflect off, SonarWorks analysed them as being almost completely flat when they were calibrated with the pure voicing selected, which is of course what you'd be hoping to see. And that's reflected in my listening experience too. With that pure voicing enabled, the sound really is very flat indeed, and whilst that's not as nice to listen to as the UNR curve, it's definitely more desirable in many situations, and I left them set to that voicing during the bulk of my testing. My main point of reference when judging the A7Vs was with the T7Vs, my usual monitor of choice in the lab. You could say that's not a fair comparison given the price difference, but I think it's reflective of the kind of upgrade path that somebody might take, going from affordable entry-level units to more advanced ones like these. And yes, the difference was a lot more clear-cut than I expected. In terms of frequency response, the A7Vs go a lot further at the top end, up to 45 kHz at -6 dB compared to 25 kHz for the T7Vs, and that is definitely noticeable, with things like hi-hats sparkling much more brightly in the mix. On paper, the low ends are quite similar, with the A7V going down to 40 Hz and the T7V 39, but the bass was tighter and more controlled on the A-series, with that new woofer material clearly being more agile and responsive, which leads to the bass actually feeling bigger and more impactful. Obviously, with only a 7-inch woofer, there is a natural limit to how much bass they can kick out, but there will be plenty here for most mid-sized studios, and if you really need more, they offer the A8H for you instead. Max SPL is 105 decibels peak, so there is plenty of volume there. Again, interestingly, the specs of the T7V suggest they actually go louder at 110 dB, but that wasn't reflected in my listening experience. Without knowing the specs, I would have sworn to you that the A7Vs go louder, but again, I think they're just more efficient at creating a big sound. Most exciting for me was the level of detail that the A7Vs present. Stereo imaging was exemplary, with the natural width of recordings like the Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil being reflected perfectly in the soundstage. Tracks like Left Field's Fat Planet perfectly demonstrated the ability of the A7Vs to handle a wide range of frequencies, with both sharp, precise highs and voluptuous lows. Mid-range is incredibly detailed too. Listen to Jocelyn Brown's vocals on New Year Console's It's Alright I Feel It, and they punch through in stunning fashion. And that mid-range clarity is really highlighted with tracks like Dr. Dre's Explosive, where the bass can sometimes overwhelm the vocals on some lesser monitors. On the A7Vs though, the balance is absolutely spot on. So I come back to my original question. At over twice the price of quality entry-level monitors, are the A7Vs worth the extra money? Even putting aside the advanced DSP stuff, which I do think is incredibly valuable, and judging on sound alone, my answer has to be yes. So there you go, my thoughts on the A7V studio monitors from Adam Audio. It's been a really interesting process making this review because I have heard higher end studio monitors before, but generally when I've done so, it's been in a nice studio space. Somewhere where it's got proper acoustic treatment, where the rest of the signal path is really high quality. And so in that situation, it's just hard to judge. You know, these monitors sound great, but is that just down to the monitors or is that down to the studio space as a whole? Because of course, any room that you put a pair of speakers in will impact that sound in quite a major way. But these, I've had them at home for a while, I've had them here in the lab, I've tried them in various setups and situations, and I can say for sure that there is a dramatic difference between the A7Vs and any of the budget monitors that I have tried before. No doubt about it, the difference is clear, it is apparent as soon as you start listening, especially when you start A-Bing between them. Yeah, there is a difference there, they are superior. Whether or not that superiority does justify itself when it comes to cost, because there is a big jump between the T7Vs and these, for example, that's going to be down to you and the kind of things that you're doing. For me, the A7Vs, they're lone units, they're going back. I don't think I could justify the cost of upgrading to them myself, because generally my use of studio monitors is for DJing, you know, live streaming, etc., and for re-editing tracks and editing audio for my videos, which is generally dialogue based. If I was producing tracks, it would probably be a different story, and I'd probably be hunting for my credit card right now to pick a pair of these up, because as I say, the difference is there, the difference is clear. I wish I could show it to you on a video, but I just can't. I think though that the difference is so apparent that if you were to go to a dealer and audition these against more affordable monitors, you would come away with the same opinion very quickly. Yes, they are definitely a step up from budget monitors. If you're looking for something in this kind of mid to higher end tier, I don't think you'll be disappointed with the A7Vs. They are absolutely a class act. In the comments this week, I'd love to hear from you on the topic of upgrades. In particular, I want to know the most impactful upgrade you've ever made to your setup as a DJ or in the studio. In my case, it's an easy answer. It was the day that I finally got rid of my SoundLab DLP1 belt drive turntables and replaced them with a shiny pair of Technics SL1210 Mark IIs. That was a life-changing day for me, absolutely. But it could be a mixer, a controller, a piece of software even. Just let me know, yeah, what's been the biggest upgrade you've ever made in your setup. Thank you for watching this episode of Beatsource Tech. I do hope you've enjoyed it or found it useful. If you have, please do give the video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos. I'll see you next time.